Brahma asked, when the only reality is the infinite consciousness and its own inherent kinetic power, how does the jiva acquire an apparent reality in the secondless unity? Brahma's wondering how various phenomena or various beliefs and notions arise in the one consciousness. The one consciousness being all that there is. And he puts an interesting clause in here. The only reality is the infinite consciousness and its own inherent kinetic power. When we say there's only one consciousness, one being, it tends to have a rather static sense, but it is kinetic, it's dynamic. Its own inherent dynamic power. There's an ongoing becoming going on. And he's asking about the jiva, which is usually translated as soul or individuated psyche. How does the jiva acquire an apparent reality? The jiva is quite important in Hinduism. It is supposed to be an immortal soul that goes from one birth to the next. I think it's probably the same as we have in the West when people talk about the soul and those people that specifically believe in reincarnation. And the Christians believe, I think, that the soul will be incarnated on the day of judgment, or physically reincarnated, I think. But some people like to believe that the soul goes on. Basically, they take on the Hindu belief that the soul goes on through various births until it gets liberated or enlightened. So it's quite an important concept in Hinduism. Personally, I don't think it's important at all, but since this is a Hindu text and the jiva is a notion that a lot of people relate to, let's explore what Vasistha's got to say. Vasistha replied, in the mind of the ignorant alone does this terrible goblin known as jiva arise as a reflected reality or appearance, like a mirage in other words. No one, not even the men of wisdom or sages, can definitely say what it is, because it is devoid of any indications of its nature. So it's really dismissing the jiva here, isn't it? Vasistha's dismissing the jiva as an ignorant notion, which is quite a contrast to the story of Queen Leela that we had earlier on, where the jiva seemed to be quite important and quite real in a way, more real than our physical body. Although the underlying truth is that both the physical body and the jiva are no more than notions. In the mirror of infinite consciousness, countless reflections are seen which constitute the appearance of the world. These are the jivas. Jiva is likened to just a little agitation on the surface of the ocean of Brahman, or just a little movement of the flame of a candle in a windless room. When in that slight agitation the infinitude of the infinite consciousness is veiled, limitation of consciousness appears to arise. This too is inherent in that infinite consciousness, and that limitation of consciousness is known as the jiva. So I think we're getting a bit philosophical here. They're trying to find some basis for this idea of the individual soul. They're trying to find some basis in the Advaitic teaching that there's only consciousness. Although there is ultimately no such thing as this jiva. And it's being described here as a limitation of consciousness, which I suppose is fair enough. I mentioned last time that, or a couple of chapters ago, that the infinite, being infinite, includes the finite. So the infinite actually includes some kind of self-limitation. And that's what we've got. We've got a limited sense of ourselves, a limited sense of our being, and a limited sense of the importance of our own consciousness. We feel that our consciousness is not as important as this apparently inert world that we move around in. So these limitations arise and they express themselves in different ways. And it's these limitations that we want to be aware of, and once we're aware of them, we can be free of them. Just as when a spark from a flame comes into contact with flammable substance, it bursts into an independent flame, even so this limitation of consciousness, when it is fed by latent tendencies and memories, condenses into egotism, I-ness. This I-ness is not a solid reality, but the jiva sees it as real, like the blueness of the sky. When the egotism begins to entertain its own notions, it gives rise to the mind stuff, the concept of an independent and separate jiva, mind, maya, or cosmic illusion, cosmic nature, etc. Yeah, so you can have lots of theories about why our limitation expresses itself the way it does. And I think this is quite good what we've got here actually. Once we've got that sense of separateness, it tends to be reinforced. Young kids don't have that sense of separateness. It's something that they have to learn as they get older. So this sense of separateness, this sense of individuality, of an individual ego, is something that's learnt. And then we take it as being reality. The intelligence which entertains these notions conjures up the natural elements, earth, water, fire, air and space. Associated with these, the same intelligence becomes a spark of light, though it is the cosmic light in truth. It then condenses into countless forms. Somewhere it becomes a tree, etc., somewhere a bird, etc., somewhere it becomes a goblin, etc., somewhere it becomes demigods, etc. The first of such modifications becomes the creator Brahma, and creates others by thought and will. Thus the vibration in consciousness alone is the jiva, karma, God, and all the rest follows. So take your pick. The Vasistha is trying to justify the whole Hindu cosmology, which must somehow arise from this one consciousness. But all these are just systems of thought, and I think Vasistha would definitely acknowledge that. Creation of the mind is but agitation in consciousness, and the world exists in the mind. It seems to exist because of imperfect vision, imperfect understanding. It is really not more than a long dream. If this is understood, then all duality will come to an end, and Brahman, Jiva, mind, Maya, doer, action, and the world will all be seen as synonymous with the one non-dual, infinite consciousness. So all these beliefs of Hindu cosmology, of mathematics, of physics, are all expressions of mind, expressions of consciousness. And we can come back to that.